Hi guys and welcome to my review of the Moto G second generation. In case you missed it, I already reviewed the Moto X second generation and the next in line will be the Moto E. And then I will compare all three of them just so you can see how low-end, mid-range and flagship actually compare with each other. But let's not waste any more time and check the design. Comparison with the Moto X, as you can see here, it has pretty much the same length, but it is not as wide as the X. Of course it is a lot smaller than the E, but the good thing is in terms of actual thickness, as you can see here, it is quite a bit thicker than the X, but in hand, due to being more narrow, it actually feels pretty much the same, if not even better. Otherwise, the back, it is what is nice about the back is fingerprints don't stick. As you can see here, they almost fade away just in every second, so it will look always clean, which is pretty nice. The material itself is a bit odd because it is so smooth that it feels a little bit odd, but it feels better than, for example, the Nexus 5. And here we also see the dimple, the flash and the camera. On the side, on the right hand side, we can see the power button and the volume rocker. They don't have this nice clicky feedback as you can maybe not hear, but therefore the tactile feedback is quite okay. The position is also good, nothing to really complain here. Here we have a microphone, here we have the headphone jack. Otherwise it's clean on the left side, and on the bottom we have the micro USB. Underneath, because you can open the back, there is the micro SD card slot and the SIM card tray. You won't see much otherwise. In terms of the front, you can see it looks quite okay. The bezels aren't too big, especially for a mid-ranger. They look quite nice. We have stereo front-facing speakers, which are actually stereo. Here we have the camera. So my thoughts on the design: it feels nice in the hand because some really nice curves. It has a nice curve here, which feels nice. There is a little bit of a border here. It has this nice angle where you can hold on very easily and very secure. So this makes it very easy to grab. So it was very secure in the hand and it felt just nice. Not really anything to say otherwise, because they've done a great job. And this doesn't feel like a $200 phone, this or even less. It feels way more premium actually. And you can easily charge double the money because it just feels solid. As you can see here, the back also solid. So absolutely great job in terms of design and quality. Nothing to say here. Great job. Let's check the display now. What do we have here? We only, maybe you could say only have a 720p, but actually it is a brilliant one. It is 5 inches in diagonal and 720p. Once again, I think it is definitely sharp enough, and I didn't really notice it that much when I had, for example, the Moto X. In comparison, you did notice it wasn't as sharp, but therefore I think personally it has the way better calibration here, because as you can check it here, the white is absolutely brilliant, exactly where I want it to be, and there's nothing I would possibly could say bad about the white. It is absolutely nice. One thing I noticed though, it has a little bit of a yellow stain at the bottom, but nothing really you would notice anyways. The blacks, the great thing about the blacks is they are deep. There is a little bit of light bleed on this part, but also not really anything that you will see. The blacks otherwise are quite nice, don't lose any details, so all is good here as well. The colors, as you can maybe see, also quite vivid, vibrant. They pop a little bit, but I wouldn't say they are oversaturated. They are quite accurate, nice to look at. Didn't have any problems. Really nicely done display. Once again here as well. Also the viewing angles, they maybe don't look that well on the camera here, but I can tell you they are absolutely stable. So overall, absolutely nice display. Absolutely nothing bad to say. It is a really great 720p display, and I would say even one of the best ones. The one compared that I would maybe compare it to would be on the Lumia 830, which costs quite a bit more, and this is pretty much on the same level. Maybe not as high quality because of the light bleed and the yellow stain, but in terms of the white balance, color balance, blacks and white viewing angles, absolutely top and nothing bad to say. So that's why I will change now and get to the sound. Stereo speakers, what do we have? Okay, my opinion on the sound. Maybe you did notice it, it wasn't the loudest sound, but therefore it's quite rich. It sounds very full. There is a little bit of bass. The mids and highs are absolutely nice. nicely done. It does maybe have this really stereo immersive sound. It is maybe not that super clear. It could be a little bit cleaner, because in comparison with the Moto X, it just sounds a little bit muffled. But otherwise, I have nothing bad to say. It could be a little bit louder, but it's still pretty much in line with all the best ones. And if you compare it, that this is just a budget phone, the sound is absolutely more than fine. Let's get to the performance now. As always, let's check on Twitter app, and as you can see here, it does run absolutely smooth. There is no denying here, this is absolutely buttery smooth. Let's check another app here, for example Amber. As you can see here, again, it does take a little bit of time to load because of only 1 GB of RAM, but as you can see here, this is all very nice, very smooth. Even G Plus runs okay. It needs a little bit of caching. That is the only caveat I have here. It has only 1 GB of RAM, and you will notice this for multitasking because it has to refresh and reload quite a lot of things. But otherwise, the performance, once you are in an app, the app is fully loaded, things are absolutely fine here, and I can't really say anything else otherwise. Loading times right now won't be the fastest because I'm not even sure if my Wi-Fi is connected up here. Okay, it works, but yeah, my Wi-Fi here isn't great, so it would actually be better. But just so you, okay, as you can see, when the site is loading, it is a little bit still choppy, as you can see here. But once the site, as you can see here now, is loaded, it is absolutely smooth. Nothing to say here. The only thing where you will notice it once you have lots of apps, if you can see now, you did see it did refresh. If you go back into Amber, you will see it has to refresh. So this is the one thing. If this device would have 2 GB of RAM, then it would be absolutely great. But I think they almost maybe did it so it won't be too close to the X, because the X has 2 GB, and you notice a difference between 2 GB and 3 GB already in storing files and so on. But 1 GB I think these days just isn't quite enough. It is good, but it still could be better. Let's check one game just so you can see the gaming performance, and I really can't say anything bad about the gaming performance. Things run smooth, maybe not quite as smooth as the flagship, but at every time absolutely playable, and you will see this here, as you can see here. As you can see here, this is absolutely smooth. It is playable all the time. I never had really any issues. Sorry for the bad gaming right now. Okay, I think it is visible. So I'm absolutely pleased with the performance, so nothing otherwise to say. So we covered the performance in daily use, absolutely fine. Everything is buttery smooth. We are running 5.0.2 Lollipop, so things are smooth. There is a little bit of a difference noticeable between the best ones out there, but once the app is loaded, and that is the important thing, the experience is pretty much the same. Apps, maybe as you can here see, they do load due to the 1 GB of RAM, and things just take sometimes a little bit longer, but that's pretty much all there is. That is not that great in terms of performance. Okay, the next thing to check would be the battery life. Charging times. 1 hour of charging and you are at 60%, and slightly less than 2 hours and you are fully charged. Absolutely fine value, nothing bad to say. Battery life is also quite, maybe not impressive, but almost, I would say, impressive, because you can easily get 1 full day with 4 hours of screen on time. I would even say 4.5 hours should be no problem. And if you are a bit more on lightweight tasks, 5 hours is what I see possible. And I also tried it, since it is a mid-range phone, to use like a mid-range phone using person would use it. So not that much activity, not so much screen on time on 1 day. So 2 days of use, and I got about 3 hours of screen on time. So this is still a great value. The only thing I have to mention is the standby drain on Wi-Fi was quite a bit odd, because if everything was running smooth and well, it had maybe 0.5% of battery drain, standby drain per hour. But if something went wrong and the Android system, something hung himself, and I had this almost every second charge, then it used like 10% an hour in standby. A reboot fixed that, but still there is maybe a small bug in the software. I didn't notice anything of that on the X, and also I don't see it so far on the E. So maybe it's a minor thing, but otherwise I'm totally happy with the battery life, because almost 5 hours, maybe. I think 5 are possible. This was with a brightness of 50%, but I would say 4.5 over 1 day should be no problem at all. The next thing to talk about would be the software, and I actually don't have too much to say because it is still pretty much stock Android. As you can see here, everything looks like stock Android. Once again, 5.0.2, and there's not much else otherwise to show off than Moto. There are a few Moto apps, but there's not really that much to tell. You have ambient display, you have voice activation and all that. You pretty much know this if you know the first generation Moto X, so I don't really want to show off that much. Otherwise, the last thing to talk about would be the camera. The camera isn't the best. It is okay, I would say. It is not as good as on the X, and it is, I would say it is passable. For a mid-ranger, the quality is acceptable. It does blur out. Everything is just not that sharp, and especially if you record videos, you will notice nothing on videos is really sharp and distinguished. Everything looks like a mix, everything looks washed in together. This is a bit odd because the pictures otherwise are okay. Low light performance wasn't even that bad compared, since all even flagships have struggled in low light, so that is okay. But I wouldn't say this is much more than for maybe social networks, so it is okay for Twitter and Instagram. It's okay. But if you want a really great camera on a budget phone, maybe look elsewhere, somewhere in the Windows Phone department. But on Android, I wouldn't expect a great camera in this price range because that's just impossible, since not even the flagship from Moto X has the best camera. So that's all I have to say about the camera. And this leads me to my recap. Build quality and design are absolutely great, especially if you consider this device doesn't even cost $200. It feels great in the hand, it feels solid in the hand. All the ports and buttons are where they should be, in my opinion. It is really nice to hold on. You can reach everything. One hand uses no problem. The display is really, really nice. 720p, maybe not 1080p sharp, but for a 720p you can do it much better. We have the perfect white, a really nice black, nice colors. The balance and overall is just absolutely fine. In this price range, I don't think you will get anything close to that. Sound was quite fine. Nothing to really say otherwise. It didn't blow me away, but for the job it had to do on a mid-ranger, it did it really satisfying. Performance also very nice. Everything was smooth, everything was consistently smooth. No hiccups at all. The only thing I have to say is the 1GB of RAM that is a little bit diminishing the overall experience. But the good thing here is the actual experience on this phone isn't really that much different to compare to any flagship, because the only drawback is the loading times, since it has to refresh things. But otherwise it didn't feel in normal use really anything different than, for example, the X. The last thing to talk about, battery life and okay, the camera. But the battery life, totally fine. Definitely way better than the X, because you can at least say 1 additional hour of battery life of screen on time should be possible compared to the X. And for a mid-ranger, this is absolutely fine. The SoC, the Snapdragon 400, does a great job because it is very power efficient. And if the Android systems don't hang, the standby drain is also very nice. Okay, now the last thing, the camera. Not impressive, but also not completely disappointing. For the price, it gets the job done quite well. So, would I recommend it for this price? Because in Germany right now it is about 160 euros. And I highly doubt you will find anything that comes even close to this, because it just feels great. The display is really nice. Camera is okay, sound is good, and the performance is not really that far off from a flagship phone. And for at least half the price of the Moto X, it is. So I wouldn't say how much less good is it compared to the Moto X, but how much better is the X. And actually it's not that far off. If you compare, you would have to say it doesn't even cost half that, but it is just maybe 10% or let's say 20% not as great as the X. So I think they've accomplished quite a thing. And if they would have put 2GB of RAM in this device, I almost see no reason to buy the flagship, because this is what Lumia likes to call a mid-range flagship. This is the real mid-range flagship. So I'm not really sure what they could have done better. Maybe the camera, and maybe, but why? Because for a price under $200, you can't really expect much. It's not like you do any sacrifices. You get all you would expect to get, and maybe even more. So I am definitely very impressed, especially for the price range, because the closest thing I know in terms of performance and everything of those qualities would be the Samsung Galaxy A5, but that one costs at least 100 more. So even then, this is a great comparison and makes great bang for your buck. And that's all I can say. This was my review of the Moto G 2nd generation. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. If you have anything else, if I may be completely wrong, if you think so, let me know in the comments. Until next time, bye.